Hi, it's Nicole, and today I'm going to be doing my March and April wrap-up, and it should be a pretty quick video because I didn't read that much in March and April. In March, I only read one book, and that was Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo, and I really liked this book. It's funny because I knew it existed, but it wasn't really on my radar until Stephanie started talking about it, and she really liked it, and so I picked it up. And then there was a moment, I think maybe halfway through reading it, that I realized that this is the book that Helen from Books by Lanes was talking about, and she hated it and she really ripped into it, and that review was really funny. And I liked that review, even though it was totally trashing the book, and I still also like the book. The characters are all sort of archetypes, and I think they're meant to be a little bit, I don't want to say cliche, but they're meant to be kind of the extremes of what the group that is being commented on is, and I think a lot of that's done very tongue-in-cheek, though I can see why someone would look at them and think, oh, they're just the stereotype. However, I felt like a lot of the stuff, for example, with the millennial or zillennial, Zoomer, Gen Z, whatever, the youngest character who was explored in the book, I feel like a lot of the stuff with her feels quite, I don't know, kind of stereotypical and whatever else, I guess, but I think it's done in a tongue-in-cheek way that's supposed to be the extremes of that, and I think there are certain points in the book where there's nods to the characters being archetypes, them being aware of that in a way, somewhat. So I didn't really feel like that was something that I would criticize about the book. At the same time, I feel like it was kind of, I don't know, I guess this is kind of sort of spoiler-ish territory, so I'll put a little thing on the screen so you know when you can skip over this if you want to, whatever, though I don't think it's a real spoil. I mean, it kind of is, whatever. Anyway, so one thing that I do have a bit of a problem with is that I think all of the stories did center too much on romantic relationships, and it felt a little bit like none of these characters' stories could be resolved until something came to a head with their romantic lives, and I feel like that was sort of a shame. I would like to see the idea of characters being able to flourish outside of that, especially because most of the characters are women. I would have liked to see more of their ability to flourish outside of whether or not their romantic lives are okay or resolved or whatever. But overall, I really liked the writing and I was drawn into the story and stuff, so that worked quite well for me. I also think that it's possible that I end up liking these books when I read them more than I think I will, because the genre in general seems like a genre that just would not really appeal that much to me. This is kind of a huge section of literary fiction that I don't really go for very often, and I think it's that thing that heads into intergenerational family saga territory that is not really for me. But I did enjoy this, and I feel like I probably would enjoy loads of those kinds of stories once I get into them. I listened to this on audiobook, and I think that is the perfect medium for me to tackle any of these kinds of stories, because I just won't give it the time of day if I'm actually reading it on paper. I just won't be there long enough for that. But anyway, this worked well for me in this format, and I liked it, and I would probably recommend it. Yeah, cool. The first book that I read in April then was The Home Place by J. Drew Lanham, and I talked about this already in my most recent vlog, so I won't repeat any of that stuff. I liked it, though it didn't do what I thought it would do for me. It didn't yeah, but it has made me think that I want to read more nonfiction nature writing from non-white authors, and so that'll be something that I'm looking more at, and especially ones that don't focus primarily on their identity as a non-white person. But I would really like to see more non-white authors in the nature writing space who are just talking about their area of study or their specialization or their particular passion or whatever else, rather than talking exclusively about the ways that they've been excluded from certain areas and stuff. And I relate to it and blah blah, but I would like to see, just more variety in the nature writing space in general, where it's not centered just on their identity. So yeah, I mean, I was also thinking about how when you look at the whole of China, which is a huge country, for example, or the whole of the continent of Africa, and the whole of South America. And it's like, seriously? There are no non-white people writing in those spaces about their environments? That seems not true. So I think there is a lot of publishing gatekeeping going on, but I think there's also a lot to do with those kinds of stories not being publicized enough and me not being aware of them enough. I think there will be more of those kinds. I think there will be nature writing from those kinds of authors that is more centered around politics, more centered around the politics of access and things like that. I don't think that's that hard to find, but I do think it's hard to find things where it's just, I don't know, some Chinese author just really loves oak trees or something, and she's doing a book entirely about that, or a African author really loves whales, and so she's writing a book about humpback whales, or that kind of thing. Anyway, this is a little rant that has nothing to do with anything, and maybe should be put in a vlog and not in a wrap-up. After that, I read Draw Stronger, Self-Care for Cartoonists and Other Visual Artists by Kriota Willberg. That one was really a reference read for me because of my work. I am a cartoonist and illustrator, and I love what I do, and I want to be doing it for as long as I possibly can be. And on top of drawing being my job, I also have a lot of hobbies that involve the same muscles that I'm using throughout the day for my job, and I want to make sure that I'm not doing my body bad, if you know what I mean. So I want to be aware of posture, aware of furniture that I should be using to help me do my job in a healthy way. So things like the right kinds of chair, the right kind of desk, and making sure all of those things are in place, ergonomic workstation stuff in place, which is not in place at the moment, but hopefully will be going forward at some point. I don't know. But anyway, I found this to be quite a good book. It was exactly what I was looking for. It's very entry level, which is where I'm at, so I'm glad about that. And it was also, it also had a lot of tips and things. It has a disclaimer saying that this is not medical advice or anything like that, and that you should really be seeking medical attention from your healthcare professional above all, but it's mostly just kind of general things to think about and ideas about scheduling in breaks and the kinds of stretches that you can do to either work out a pain or to prevent future pain. I found that very useful, and I will probably be referencing that often in future. I've already found myself occasionally looking through there when I'm looking for some kind of stretches to do in my break or something like that. So yeah, I would recommend that as an entry-level thing into learning how to work ergonomically if you do a lot of work with your hands, if you're a musician, for example, or a visual artist, or a writer even, anything like that. Yeah. And then finally, in the last day of April, I read Tell Me How It Ends, an essay in 40 questions by Valeria Luiselli, and I thought that was very good. I already did a review for that, which won't be going up until after this video, I think, but I read that for Indie Press Project, so I'll have a video up talking about that. Unfortunately, in the months of March and April, I started my Invisible Cities books, and I started quite a few of them, but I never finished any of them. So in March I was focusing on Mexico, and I was reading the Frida Kahlo book, which I'm still reading now. I really love it. It's a beautiful book, and it's interesting the kinds of thoughts that I have. I think I might maybe in a vlog or something like that do a little update on some of my thoughts, making my way through that. And then I was also listening to Lost Children Archive by Valeria Luiselli from March for Mexico, and I just got bored. I mean, it's a good book, but every time I put it down, I just didn't really care that much about picking it back up, and I think the whole point of it is to feel like there's this distance and to feel like there's this sort of numbness going through the whole book. And because of that, and also the fact that it's not a story that I think is my kind of thing in the first place, I don't really get on that well with family dramas of that particular nature, where it's like, oh, the couple is, you know, becoming distant from each other and let's watch the slow descent. It's just not really my kind of thing. But then some of the stuff that it was dealing with the immigration of children from Mexico to the United States was sort of interesting. And that kind of, I guess, led me to Tell Me How It Ends, which is more dealing with that specific thing, the immigration of these children, not just from Mexico, but from South America in general into the US, and looking at, you know, what happens there with them. And Tell Me How It Ends is nonfiction, which is already something that I've been leaning towards more and more and more. And then in April for Invisible Cities, I had started Dumb Luck, and I forget the author's name, and I forget the translator's name. Oy, okay, but I will probably talk about that at some other time, because I haven't finished it yet. I was enjoying it, and when I do eventually finish it, it will be in its own other month wrap-up, I'm sure. So that was all I read from March and April. Anyway, that's all I have for now, because I think that's actually quite long when it was supposed to be a short video. Yeah, so I'll see you again next time. Bye!